Good morning and welcome to the Get Your Email Marketing Strategy Back on Track Masterclass. Please welcome your host today, Pascal Fintoni. Good morning, Pascal. How are you doing this morning?
Well, good morning, and good morning to all of you. We have so many participants and attendees today this morning, Rory. Thank you to you and the team for all the hard work behind the scenes.
No problem at all. Well, we've got lots to cover today. It's going to be such a fantastic webinar. So I'm going to let you crack on with it and enjoy the session, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rory. So once again, thank you for your support, whether you're watching us live or on replay. As always, it's really appreciated. And it makes really people like myself and the other trainers look forward to spending a bit of time with you, albeit virtually. Yes, we would rather be in the room with you so we can see each other, exchange a few words and so on. But we are making, I think, the most of what's available to us. So as you saw from Rory's presentation today, I want to spend some time with you to talk about email marketing, but email marketing strategy. So we're going to have a session to look at the approach and mindset to really help you reconnect with your email marketing activities and see where we can get more values. Time will be against us to go into a lot of details, but we do have a segment allocated for your questions. So in the Q&A element, I'm happy to answer your questions on very practical elements, but the large majority of my presentation discussion with you is around this idea of an approach, maybe a different approach to help you get more value from your efforts using email marketing. So a subject that I'm a big fan of, but doesn't always come in terms of requests from our audience. It's almost as if email marketing goes through trends. So I remember vividly when we began the support programs in your region, whether it's in County Durham or in Yorkshire, I would say 2013-14, there was a lot of requests for, can we learn about email marketing in details and sometimes do some very practical sessions on some of the platforms. And then it's almost around 2016, the demand stopped. And instead, understandably so, people were asking about social media, video, SEO, and that kind of things. And then, as you'll see in a moment, the request for email marketing and kind of learning came back in and around 2018, which I think is fascinating. So my job today, again, is to guide you through this new way of thinking, to give you a strategy or an approach, if you prefer the term, but importantly, for you to come up with your own version of this blueprint that I'm going to share with you today. You should end up, all of you, with a very personal, unique approach to email marketing because you have a different business, because you have obviously very, very different customers. So what I'm going to do is, as is often the case with these webinars, we have visual aid to kind of help us go through the different key elements. And this idea of going back on track, for me, it's all to do with this perhaps potential that you've been active already on email marketing, been doing it so for a while, but perhaps you feel that you've plateaued a bit and you need some new kind of ideas to come in and feel energized again about looking at your email marketing campaign. Maybe you had a break. What wouldn't you? So perhaps this is about returning to doing email marketing and doing it that way. And potentially your business has changed. Perhaps, accelerated, the change has been accelerated by COVID and other kind of pressures. So perhaps we need to readjust, your activities because things have moved on. You have a new customer base, maybe you have new products and services in mind. But it's all this idea of a moment of reflection to help you make wise decision on how to use your time. So as you saw a moment ago, this is organized with a good support from the team at UMI, who are delivering the County Durham Digital Drive and Digital Knowledge Exchange program. But ultimately, what we want to facilitate is ongoing conversation beyond today's session. So do think about keeping in touch and support each other as you make those changes to your email marketing activities. My role today is essentially to give you potentially a new way of thinking and for you to adopt a new approach or a different approach. At the heart of what we do, and it's been ultimately what I've been doing with this part of this program. We'll almost start a season with a strategy session, and as we're coming near the end of this season, I come back to you with another strategy sessions. We're nearly the end of September, the time of recording. And my role, as you know, is to make you think differently about an activity that has been around for a while, often is to challenge the language and the kind of preconceived idea so that you can take different actions and get better results. So that to me is at the heart of our time together. As Rory mentioned a moment ago, don't hesitate to leave comments and reactions into the chat box. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A, and I will stop every so often to kind of invite Rory to read out your questions. So in terms of my work today, what I'm looking forward to is this idea of, following this brief overview, to give you a recap on the essentials. So email marketing has been around for quite some time. I'll have a question for you in a moment. And I think there are some essentials that we now understand, and they are the things that should be in place no matter what. Having discussed the essentials with you, what I want to do then is talk about the new tactics for 2020, 2021, what's going to help you stand out from the white noise of the internet, but also what's going to help your email stand out in someone's busy inbox. Ultimately, even though I've mentioned a moment ago, social media, SEO, and all the different ways in which people can communicate, email in the inbox is still the number one way in which people access information. And as you'll see in a moment, the numbers are still looking very healthy. And then what I want to do today is have a recap on content creation, because we'll understand that ultimately, once we've gone past the essentials, once we have the tactics and you'll become familiar with the platforms, you and old, your email performance will depend really entirely on the quality of your content. We need to talk about that, of course. So things are moving on at quite a pace, and I'm going to have a bit of fun with you and ask you a question. When we think about email and email marketing, can you hazard a guess as to when was the first email invented? So it's just a complete guess, or maybe perhaps you are a historian of the internet, but using the chat box, can you hazard a guess as to what year was the first email invented? Can you just go into the chat box? And Rory, you can take part as well. And let me know, can you guess when was the first email invented? Just put a year into the chat box. I have no prize, by the way. It's just a pleasure of taking part. So let's see where we get to. So I've got Peter, 1966, 1984 from Michael. It's going fast. Keith, 1980. Good morning, Keith. Nicola, 1975. Got Curtis, 1971. Lucy saying 1970-ish. So does it mean early 70s or late 70s for you, Lucy? Catherine, 1976. Okay, keep them coming. All right. So early 70s from Lucy, thank you. So the year, according to the history of the web, is 1971. So Curtis, well done. If you knew the answer, very impressed. If it's a guess, even more impressed. And what is interesting, this was invented by a chap called Ray Tomlinson. Ray Tomlinson was working on an early version of the World Wide Web. That's cheating, Curtis. Use Google, and called HarperNet. You can Google that. An early version of the internet was a closed network between the military and the university, and it was looking for a way to leave important message to colleagues working on different sites. And then fast forward to the kind of early 80s, the email system became just a bit more public. But for us, really, mere mortals, I would argue the late 80s to early 90s was when it became public. But the first email was invented in 1971. And then I leave you the pleasure of looking at the history of the internet to discover when the first spam email was created as well. So been around for a while, and as a practice, it's something that in some circles people could say it's a rather old practice in terms of marketing. Maybe people saying, I find it so much more exciting to do other things. But the reason why I'm keen to talk to you about it today is because hour for hour, pound for pound, the data would suggest you're going to get better return on effort from email marketing than any other kind of disciplines, although the other disciplines will support it. Now, I mentioned to you a moment ago that around 2016, people stopped asking about email marketing, and then he came back in 2018. I want to explore that with you for a moment. But in general, what we do know is that maybe what we needed as people is a break maybe from email marketing and focus on learning about social media and more about SEO. What I will argue is that social media has reminded us, if not taught us, the very good habit of personal interaction and personalization. And with regard to SEO, it's taught us the very good habit of creating relevant content that people are seeking out. So maybe that was, a healthy break until he came back in 2018. So 2018, at the Digital Draft and the Durham program, we came back with a course, and today you could argue is some extract from that course with some new information that I've compiled for you. The what is interesting is 2018 is maybe because two things happened. A, we had some numbers, as you can see on screen, that email marketing was by far the best performing channel of communication for businesses. 80%, according to this review from Orbello Masses, the 80% seemed to be the data that was repeated by the likes of eMarketer and many others out there. So it's quite reliable. But I think in 2018, people perhaps were a little disappointed again by the performance of social media and SEO. They were what I've called the false promise in previous webinars. The other thing, which I don't think was the only reason, but perhaps it had a role to play. Some of you may remember, of course, the good old days of the GDPR kind of regulations coming on in force. But I think it was more to do with performance. Let me know what you think. The other thing that became clearer when it came with their marketing, and I think again because we learned from social media, is the rapid and evident impact of making things more personal. The platform will allow you to personalize the information, but also you took more effort to make sure that the content was something that people would engage with. So as you can see from the data here from Deliverer, it is clear that nobody wants to create and nobody wants to receive a one-size-fits-all, which puts some pressure on us, but again, the platforms can help. The other thing that I think was important is that in general, email marketing works across all age groups. So this is a survey done very recently, as you can see, by Hootsuite and We Are Social. Admittedly, primarily US audience, but I think we can take some information from that. And as you can see, in general, across all age groups, email marketing performs well. And I think also it's for me to let you know that this myth or this kind of urban legend about, if you're under the age of 30, you don't do emails anymore. I don't think that's true. If anything, people need an email address to access any online platforms. They may use it very differently. So again, there was probably this feeling that email marketing can allow you to do things across all age group, while some platforms such as the search and social media would allow you to do less so. For me, the really evident sign came actually as recently as last week. I was at a conference with around people and productivity and leading in the times of change. And there was a great presentation with this organization called Geek Talent. And what they do, as you can tell from the screen grab of their website homepage, is they study skill and they study the landscape of what industries need at what time. And what was fascinating is, according to their research across the UK, the number one digital skill that is in demand at a very high level, way ahead of all the others, was email marketing management, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, because I think it is really a practice that brings everything you need to know in terms of being a good communicator, the kind of people skills, the content skills, the kind of digital online communication skills. So I hope you don't mind, but I just was delighted to be invited to talk to you about email marketing. But I wanted to let you understand that it's not because I'm a big fan. I think there is some evidence that email marketing has a big role to play in your business success moving forward. Now, before I move on to the actual session, I wanted to kind of ask you, how do you feel about email marketing in general for your business? Before I move on to explanation of how you might do things differently. Are you happy with email marketing in terms of its presence as part of your marketing campaign? Is it something that is complex to understand? Where do you fit, and how do you feel in general about email marketing? If you let me know in the chat, that would be fantastic for me to just get a sense of who's in the room today. So Sonia, that's absolutely fine. Even if you're a total novice, there'll be things you can take away from today. As you know, all of you, the webinars are designed for all levels, but thanks for letting me know. Good morning, Peter. Good to see you again. I hope you're well. So, quick question to you. Put that in the chat room. Comfortable? Sorry, that was Elise, Jessica. Yeah, Jessica is happy at the moment for the B2B course. New to the organization, so Claire's not sure. Kate feeling overwhelming? Yes, it can be. All of them can be. So Keith wants to know about bridging. GDPR is not dreaded, Keith. We'll look at that today. Kate is happy with what we do, large list, relevant contacts, but we'd like to increase interaction. Got something for you that today. Ready for a refresh? Thank you very much, Steve. Yeah, that can be just a case, that we're familiar, we understand it. I mean, we're on the receipt of emails and whatever, but maybe what we need is a little spark. And this is what today is about. Yes, Michael, and how to stand out and be memorable. It's getting harder, and I've got some stats to prove that to be the case. All right, thank you very much, everybody who's taking part in the little chat there. So no matter where you are, I think it's all about this idea of know where you stand and your starting point, and then the steps to kind of move from there. So let's talk about the email marketing essentials. I'm going to go through this as a bit of a training stroke presentation, but at the end I'll stop and then take your questions and get your reaction for what I'm about to explain to you. As ever, looking to make you think differently so you can do things differently. So email marketing, as you know, is at the heart of your activities when it comes to digital marketing or online marketing. Our time is split between three kind of main areas. We need to create information, it needs to be published, and then we need to amplify its visibility and its reach. So we create information, whether it's written form, whether it's visuals, audio, and video. It is published online, and we can discuss obviously the different platforms, but really the role of marketing the organization begins when you find ways to reach your audience using search engine results, social media sharing, and of course, email marketing. And email marketing is a little different because at this stage, you need to have at your disposal a list of contact of individuals who have agreed to hear from you. So as part of our kind of role, there's an additional kind of challenge, which is the building of the list, which we'll discuss, of course, today. But this is where it stands. So I want to kind of quickly summarize where we position online marketing as part of this program. I probably some of you will know this already, but this is a good recap for you. So we take the position that there is a kind of overarching aim and purpose for online marketing, digital marketing, and that is to build a positive online reputation, the best possible online reputation for your organization. So my kind of claim today would be that email marketing has a role to play in online reputation management as much as anything else. And ultimately, what we want to do through our email marketing effort is for people to believe in us, including current customers. This is retention, but of course, new customers, that would be recruitment. And we are in a strange position where nowadays, and I would argue it's been the case for quite some time. Nowadays, we need to find a way to be trusted before even people get in touch with us, which has been really at the heart of what's changed when it comes to online. So when it comes to email marketing, somebody needs to believe that subscribing to your online communication activities is going to be worth their while before they've done so. And that's just the challenge. How do you find a way for me to agree to subscribe and donate my personal information, bear in mind the abuse of the present and recent past, when ultimately I have no idea what that feels and looks like? And that is at the heart of the challenge of any online marketing activities. We're making a promise that in the future something's going to go well, and people have got to trust us for that. So that's at the back of my mind. When it comes to online reputation, you know that we have a position on that, and we would say to you that your online reputation is pretty much my reaction to the content you've chosen to share and produce. So we would like you to work through all kind of channels of communication, including email marketing, to make sure that my reactions are that I believe you're well practiced, but I also believe you're well researched, and I also believe that you're well connected. So when we think about email marketing, and if you want to kind of bring some new life to that and back on track, make sure that you don't just get stuck in this version of online communication. I think that that would make you, as I've often mentioned in the past, guilty of under communication. Make sure that email marketing helps me believe in you across those three reactions: well practiced, well researched, and well connected. Again, if this is of interest to you, perhaps Rory will kindly share the links to the videos where this has been covered in other session, primarily how to build your action plan for 2020, 2021. So I just wanted to kind of recap on that because I think that's important context. So when we think about email marketing, what I want to do to begin with is talk about the essentials and then give me a lead into the newer or different tactics for 2020, 2021. So for me, the first essential quality of a good email campaign or an approach that I think is going to work for you is this idea of, being useful. I think you've all said it before. So I can give you a little model to remind you about the usefulness. And then again, during the Q&A, I'll ask you your reaction. But we take the view as part of this program that there are three ways in which you can be useful, which have been summarized as the three M's: mentor, messenger, and merchant. So the mentor is where you're useful by answering questions you know for a fact your customers and future and current are asking themselves. Maybe they have a challenge, maybe there's something that they are kind of trying to tackle. And what is interesting about the mentor, the role of a mentor in terms of usefulness, is that you don't have to be answering questions yourself. You could, for example, curate information already available out there, or you could invite one of your connections to answer that questions. I think what is more important by usefulness is to make it happen as opposed to always be the author. And I think it's back to this idea: well researched and well connected. The second one, the messenger, is quite simply you've become the go-to email campaign or the go-to newsletter, or in the case of the website, the go-to blog for the latest news, updates, and changes about matters that are of importance to your customers. So sometimes we do two things. We share news, updates, and changes about our industry as a provider. And then we have a second kind of work stream, if you will, where you share news, updates, and information about what's changing in the world of your customers. And again, that makes it a lot more rounded. And then the third way to be useful is to highlight recent products, maybe recent services, recent purchases, and all sort of useful kind of items and tools that can make life easier. Now, of course, you can give a shout out to your own products. That's absolutely fine. But again, that would be quite limited. So why don't you also consider the role of the merchants is to give spotlights to perhaps services and products that would supplement what you do. Even give people, some ideas of books to read or events to attend, and so on and so forth. So the merchant is actually quite an interesting one. But in there, in terms of usefulness, it's by all means sharing what you produce or what you know as a kind of supplier, but be also open to this idea of looking outside and being a bit more altruistic as well. So that's this idea of usefulness, and I should see that expressed in your email marketing efforts. The next thing that I wanted to explore with you is the idea of timeliness. And for those of you who've been involved in online marketing and email marketing in particular, I'd like to think that it's been something that has been occupying your mind for quite some time. When do I send this so that it's actually opened, then acted upon? And I'm sure you've spent, like me, years and years, months and weeks analyzing, is it better this day of the week? Is it better this time of the day? And so on and so forth. And really practice and testing is the only way. I mean, by all means, you can Google this stuff and you're going to find lots of reports, but those reports are so generic that in a way, sometimes I wonder whether you could be the one business with a one audience that proves that rule to be not the case. So what do we mean by timeliness? I think for me is beyond, if you like, this idea of which day of the week and which time of the day. is actually where your customers are with essentially their thinking, their mindset as a customer. So we call this a before, during, and after. It's nothing fancy in there, but this idea of, is it possible that a future customer, therefore before they become a customer, has different questions, different needs for news, and different kind of needs for product information, that someone that is already a customer during, and they themselves would be very different. Someone who's been a customer, maybe the service has been completed, there's no real kind of follow-up for them in terms for you, but could they become one of your champion? So the before, during, and after phases of a customer journey are, I think, what timeliness is about, in addition to being concerned about the days of the week and time of the day. And I think for all of us, we've all been there where there's been that strange experience where, for example, we've already purchased an item, or we've already been a customer of a service, and we get an email that almost addresses us as if they don't know us. I remember vividly buying some items from a kind of a high street store, and then the very same day, because I get my details, I think that's part of a loyalty scheme, the very same day I was sent special offers on the very items I had purchased. So I felt quite aggrieved that I'd paid more. But of course, when I contacted them and said, well, listen, I bought the item in the store recently, and just sent me an email with the same item where it's 25% off. Can I have the 25% off, please? And they said, no, it's for new customers. And it's been kind of the same forever. So that customer journey, I think, and the mindset of customers is for you to respect that, to be seen again, to have great common sense and good customer service. So this is what I mean. You can push the timeliness option a bit further. So I came across some time ago this great resource from a chap who's based in the Netherlands called Jordi van Renia. I mean, sadly, the guy doesn't live in the Northeast, so it'd be so good, yeah, a name like Jordi van Renia. But he has this consultancy company called Email Monday, which has grown from strength to strength. And he was looking at segmentation for when you have quite a large list. So you have built a list over time. You're already applying the before, during, and after rules to separate them, to make sure that you don't embarrass themselves and disappoint them with content that is not quite relevant. But you can go beyond that to really push, how relevant you can be, and how, again, expressing, your qualities as businesses in terms of common sense, communication skills, and customer care. So of course, as you can see, you can split your list into kind of geography, all the way down to a country or even a postcode. You could even look at different language, and I mean, like, it could be original language as well as national language. Of course, the one that comes to mind always is the kind of the individuals in terms of where they stand in terms of age group, gender, and so on, which again could be a way for you to appear to at least be timely and relevant by doing things. I think life stage is a very, very important one. Would customers who are just starting a career or just starting a life need different information from you than someone who is looking to retire and maybe looking at succession planning and that kind of things? There's other elements, such as what he called psychographics elements. So this is all to do with more internal reflections, opinions, interests, values, attitude. That I think that could be an interesting one for you to consider potentially in terms of segmentation. Perhaps the one that I would use more for that notice, that behavior around the buying stage and what people need from you and how they might express it. I'm sure you can reflect, many of you, when you have meetings, although at the moment they'd be Zoom meetings more than often, the conversation you have with one individual is sometimes very different to the next. Could there be a hint in there about how you may, or again, segment your database and provide information in a more timely manner? So feel free to take a screen grab of this information, and if you have a moment, go and say hi to Jordi and thank him for his hard work at Email Monday. So that was timeliness for me. The final one, and this is where I'm going to need some of a bit of audience participation, is this idea of being visible. So the essential is that you understand that at the heart of it is the expression of being useful. The second level, timeliness, is that you think about the audience perhaps a lot more than you might do in other channels, because you can definitely segment, you can organize your thinking accordingly. But ultimately, all this will not work if people do not know that literally on offer is this idea of subscribing to an email service. If you don't find ways to make that offer that option visible, your list will not grow or not sufficiently. And therefore, we need to kind of think about this idea of ultimately, when it's all said and done, I've got to find a way to make my kind of newsletter, if that's what you're going for, or my kind of special bulletin of sort, visible, known to others, known to people who don't know about me yet, and so on and so forth. So I've got a question for you. In general, what could you do to make your email activities more visible and grow your list of subscribers, if we want to call them that? What could you do? Would you mind putting some options, and not necessarily things you've done yet? It could be an idea that you have now that you're going to do in the future. But in the chat box for me, what could you do to make your email activities, the newsletter, the bulletin, the course, whatever it might be, more visible? What is available to you? So we've got more intriguing headline from Peter. Yeah, pop-ups on website, posting on social, send page links on website footer from Elise, information to download, free webinars on site, pop-up on blog post. If you like this content, subscribe for more. I like that, Michael. Yeah, this idea of at least have had a chance to try it out before they commit. Offer some knowledge for free, Katie. I'm going to ask you kindly if you could expand on that. How would you do that? Curtis, link with social media. The stats are very clear that, yeah, if you link your email marketing activities with social media, you get more results. So any other ideas you've got? So, what is available to you to make this more visible? And the reason I'm asking is because I think this is where there could be a breakthrough for the next 6 to 12 months for all of you. All right. Rory, feel free to jump in if we have more ideas and contribution. So the challenge for all of us is that we could go ahead, and I can guarantee you that all of you already or will understand the mechanics of email marketing. You'll find a platform that you like. You will be able to craft the content, be able to distribute it. But ultimately, if we're not careful, we may end up with distributing our email kind of content to the same people, and we need new. I mean, the business is built ideally and grows with new activities, new kind of requests and inquiries and the like. So I want to expand on that and kind of warn you about essentially a practice that is soon to become outdated, if not already, which is this belief, and some of you will know what's coming if you've been on previous sessions, this belief that the way to promote your email activities, no matter what it is to promote it on your own platform. So on your own website, on your own social media, on your own kind of podcast, even that kind of things. If you only rely on your own channels, it will be too slow. And more importantly, it may not work at all because you're back to this double challenge now. You want to grow your email list by getting people to come to your website. So now you're getting people to your website. You've got a double challenge here, and we need to be ever so careful. So if you allow me, I'm just going to kind of step back to then leap forward with this idea of email marketing. And the way for me to start again is to remind you about our position as part of the program with regard to the customer journey or the funnel. We believe firmly that to get your ideal customer to get in touch with you and make an inquiry or even to purchase immediately, if that's possible, they're going to go through 3 stages of decision making and gathering information. Stage number 1 is they have to discover you. They have to know that you exist, and being online, as you well know, is not quite enough. Stage number 2 is, of course, they've got to check you out. So they look at the website, they look at social media, they may look at reviews on Google Maps. It doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to, essentially their job as a responsible customer and buyer is to know whether or not you're worthy of their consideration. And then the next stage is that they may need to have some form of interaction with you. Perhaps they want to jump onto a free webinar to find a bit more about you. Maybe you are offering one-to-one free consultancy. There's a way in which they need to have a bit of a taster version, which we call interactivity. Again, if this is of interest to you, this has been detailed quite substantially in a recent webinar. And again, Rory can share the link with you. The difference between visibility and credibility is very important to understand how this works, is that the moment you promote and share any information on your platform, your website, your Facebook page, your LinkedIn, your email marketing, and so on, you are working on your credibility. Visibility is when your information is shared by others. Therefore, it is on someone else's website, on someone else's social media. And bear in mind, our conversation of today, it is on someone else's email effort. So to vastly increase your visibility, when it comes to email marketing, you have to find a way to ideally be featured on someone else's e-newsletter, if you don't mind me using this kind of example, but there are, of course, different ways in which email marketing can be used. That is how you do visibility in the context of nearly 50 years of email marketing, but really sincerely, probably 30 years now in terms of what we've got. If you only rely on promoting it on your platform, you are not going to move it fast enough. And I think, in fact, you'll be missing out on something far more rewarding and interesting. So if you bear with me for a moment, then, if you kind of think it's plausible that visibility is about others and credibility is about you, then I want to kind of change the language slightly so that we have a blueprint that we can work on and give you a new approach for the next 12 months. So when you work with somebody else and they feature you on their email marketing effort because you wrote a guest blog on their website, maybe because you were a guest on their podcast, maybe you did a joint presentation at a webinar. There was all manner of collaboration, but somebody else is going to tell their network, their distribution list, hey, go check out this information. It's great for you. This is how you build a list. We're going to call this email marketing. To me, that, if you look at the words and what they mean, marketing your business via email, but it's because others are sending information out to their database, and in good time, some of them are going to check you out. When they check you out, they're going to be taken to your website, most likely, or to other platforms like social media. This is where you have to work on what I call your email customer promise. Why would I, in 2020, bear in mind everything that comes to my mind about the poor practices of the times, why would I share my email address with you? It's because the way in which you promised what you're going to do for me is very, very different. And then when I am registered and you're here to look after me and make sure that I don't delete or cancel or remove you from my inbox, you're into that email customer experience. And these are the three key elements that will make your strategy. Email marketing is when you find ways to promote the fact that you have something of interest. Email customer service is when you want to convert someone who is curious to, being very interested. And then email customer experience is when you are in full delivery mode and you're looking after your database, properly. So before I kind of say any more, I just want to pause for a moment and get your reaction with, firstly, the language and how I've challenged it, but also the three key elements and three phases of your email marketing strategy, even though I'm suggesting that the term email marketing should be dedicated in the purpose of crafting your approach to this idea of promoting your email offering, email marketing, email customer service, email customer experience. What do you think? Is that helpful? And the answers can be yes, no, maybe, or anything else in between. And Rory, feel free to, if there are any questions at this stage, by the way, or if you have any reactions, feel free to jump in as well. What do you think are the three stages?
Sure thing. Well, whilst we wait for that feedback to come in, we've got one question here from Warren, which is, could you please summarize the difference between messenger and mentor again?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. So mentor is about answering questions. And those questions could be something that, actually reflect your knowledge and by extension, your service and products. There could be questions actually people have on products and services that supplement what you do, which therefore you could curate, or you could invite people from your network to answer those questions by creating a guest blog or even a podcast or video. So mentoring, or the mentor usefulness, is about answering questions. Messenger is this idea of you being a journalist and researching what's out there already and giving your audience and alerting them of changes and latest updates on matters of interest to them. And I was suggesting that sometime the way to do the messenger is to give people updates about changes in your sector and industry as a supplier, but also in parallel to do one to do with their kind of sector or world as a customer. But so mentor, answer questions, messenger, be a journalist, and find the latest updates.
Brilliant. Well, that's all the questions we have so far. So don't forget, everyone, use the Q&A box if you have any questions throughout the session today. And I'll let you
Okay.
go.
So I don't sense there's any resistance against, the 3 stages of email marketing, email customer service, and email customer experience. So with that in mind, and by all means, feel free to keep adding to the chat box. Then let's continue, and I will go through those in more details throughout this session. So bear in mind that we started, and indeed they was part of the title of this session, email marketing, and we'll talk about the essentials. You understand that I can't continue by using the term email marketing, because now I've kind of dedicated it to this idea of promoting your email offer. What is it that you want people to subscribe to? So instead, what I'm going to do is continue to talk to you about your email experience. What is it that you are providing? That means I'm going to choose you. And that word experience could be used for social media. It's not social media marketing. Is if you want me to connect with you on LinkedIn, or like you on Facebook, or can follow you on Twitter, and so on and so forth, the question you need to answer is why? Why would I do that? I've got plenty. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm sure you'll appreciate that in 2020, nobody's spending hours on the web thinking, oh, do you know what? I need more newsletters to come into my inbox. I was looking at my inbox recently, and the first thought that came to mind was I could do with more e-bulletins in that inbox. I could do with some more special offers. That's not going to happen. What we are looking at potentially is that your email experience is vastly superior, so much better than what I've got in my inbox already. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually unsubscribe to those that have been kind of cluttering my inbox. I'm going to choose you instead, because you, frankly, are better than the other 4 and 5 that I've got to kind of sometime put up with every week. That's the truth. You've all spent, I'm sure, pleasant evenings with a glass of wine going through your inbox and unsubscribing. That tends to be usually what happens at the start of every year. So let's be very, very careful. So since we are talking about email experience, then I can move on to the next stage. Now, I'm going to give you as a quick summary of what we would do in a workshop situation, and perhaps you can do it yourself at your own time, back in the office. So this is what we would do. So the first thing that we would do is ask you to go through your kind of own inbox, in terms of your own mail service, and start to do what I call scrapbooking. Start to kind of say, but also study what others do, potentially your competitors, although you shouldn't be looking just at them, but also what you subscribe to, things that could be of interest to your customers. And you start to kind of reflect and save, where possible, the scrapbooking, save the layout, the design, the content, the tone of voice, the style, the mix between text, video, and audio, all those kind of things, just to give you some ideas. But ultimately, what you want to do is an exercise, having done this kind of scrapbooking, which will take you a quarter of an hour to half an hour, you want to almost kind of look at this idea of what is it that everybody's doing that maybe is fair because it's good grounding for something else, or is it possible that people are stuck in doing the same thing over and over again? And some of you mentioned, well, how do I stand out? But the way to stand out is to maybe spot what only some do. When you look at the scrapbooking, you kind of go, that's interesting. So everybody does this, but only a small number seem to be doing this. And by the way, that seems to work well for me, and I can tell. And really for you, the reflection over the next few days and few weeks is, what is it that nobody else has thought of yet? What is that you're going to do that no one is doing yet? And there's plenty. Let me tell you, there's plenty. And the reason for that is that if you start to think in those terms of your email experience, then this is why I'm going to choose you. This is why I'm going to stay with you. And I'm less likely to unsubscribe to then move on to somebody else. So this is an exercise you can do ideally with a team of people. So if you have colleagues, if you have business associates, this is something that we would have done in a workshop environment with post-its and whiteboards and whatever. And it's really, really quite good, quite liberating. But also it's a reflection and a discussion that doesn't require you to know anything about the technology. I would argue, as you see in a moment, that it probably gets in the way. So that's something to do to get you to beyond the essentials, having agreed on the email marketing, email customer promise, and email customer service experience. So my inbox is not great because it's all to do with digital. So I had to steal some content from my wife's inbox, hence the term "Hello Denise." But I'm thinking, is it what Greenfly was trying to do to be a bit different by not just reminding me when it's time to renew, but also give me some tips and tricks about motoring, maybe. Good luck to them. I think it's interesting and it helps me remember. Am I likely to renew down the line? We shall see. Is it, what Matalan was thinking when they launched, their video series? Again, not one that I watch regularly, but I thought it was interesting to see them using email to promote, videos, and which I must say, I've not seen any other brands do it at the time. Maybe others have copied scenes. Is that what they spotted, that there was still a gap in there for that, experience? Is that what Stork was thinking, or Lloyd's Bank was thinking, where on one hand Stork giving us recipes, so you get the email, but also the social alert, and you can go on the website for recipes, or Lloyd's Bank giving us a behind-the-scenes look on how they went about producing the TV adverts. Is that what they were thinking? I've got Vanish. Again, I'm not obviously a regular, but I like the idea of, what they call the tip exchange. So people could share ideas about how to remove stains in different ways and could ask questions. And again, that was part of their regular newsletter, something that I've not seen people do. Is that what Moz, the SEO company, was thinking, where they many years ago literally opened their blog to all their members, clients, and contributors? So it became a community blog, not just a company blog. So when I get the newsletter, I don't just hear from Moz, I hear from all the people that do not work from the company. And it just feels, like something that I thoroughly enjoy. And all I'm trying to say here is that new ideas will come to you, and it's where we need to start with regard to your email experience, not whether or not you're going to do this on MailChimp or the other on Aweber. That gets in the way. And when I think about it, when I think about all the examples I'm doing, I come to the conclusion that not just email marketing, but in general content, but let's use email marketing, email experience. It's about you reconnecting with your day-to-day, the daily conversations, the daily business routines and so on, and then turning them into something memorable that makes the cut into your email marketing. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you to allow me to kind of move on to the next stage of that email experience, which is rather important. So I wanted to kind of ask you a question again. There was a survey kind of compiled by a company called Statista. And they essentially compiled a survey where they were looking at UK, they surveyed the UK companies and individuals in 2018. And they were asking the question, how many of you believe that less than half of the marketing emails in your inbox are of interest to you? So they're saying, let's say they ask 100 people, of all the emails you get, from companies, email marketing, how many of those, are of interest? And they were saying, there was quite a high number that said, well, less than half, frankly, I just delete. I mean, it's become like the morning ritual of deleting stuff before you get into it. So using the chat again, out of 100 people, can you hazard a guess at how many said, yeah, less than half of it is interesting, so pretty much I'm going to delete them before moving on to actually consulting the others? I'm just curious to see whether you can hazard a guess. What will be the figure out of 100 people who would be deleting, more than half of their emails? Okay, wow, we've got some high figures. Is that reflection on your own inbox, everybody? So we've got 95%, 87 for Steve, 87 question mark Lucy, Nicola 70, Catherine 50. So Julie 75. So we've got some high figures, right? So 87 from Keith. Yeah, Claire, I'm quite ruthless. The problem is that I always begin the year by being quite ruthless, and then I'm a sucker for more information about the wonders of digital. So I always had to do the exercise again. So let me share with you the results that was compiled by Statista. It's actually over the year, which I think is going to be very telling. So 2018, 86% of people said, yeah, frankly, less than half is of interest to me. It's going to go in the bin. But if you look at how it began, 2011 it was high, 70%, but it has increased over the years, and we need to be cognizant of that. We can't just go ahead and kind of craft our email experience and kind of think that we have a market that people just can't wait to hear from us and do it that way, which is why I need to essentially ask you a question. But what happened? Nobody set out to disappoint people. Nobody set out to not do a good job. And well, my position would be that it's because I believe, and Rory has heard me say this before, for the last 10 years, maybe even longer, we spent far too much time, all of us, staring at the computer, hoping to come up with an answer. And I can guarantee you that nobody has ever come up with a good email experience, good customer experience, with just staring at the keyboard on a laptop thinking, let me come up with something. We need to kind of look at things, very, very differently. And that's going to be at the heart of what we're going to do. So I'm just going to do a quick time check, if you don't mind, just making sure that we find, in fact, this is a perfect moment. This is perfect to go for our comfort break. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stop there for this kind of lead up to the new tactics for next year and the year after. If we could be back here for 11:05, we're going to have a 10-minute break, 11:05, and then I'll really share with you what I think is going to help your email marketing, email customer promise, and your email customer experience. See you at 11:05. Thank you very much. Right. Can I just say, Rory, every time the music is just great. Welcome back, everybody. Just going to wait another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll begin. So once again, thank you for your support. Really appreciate it. And all the questions and interaction makes a huge, huge difference. Keep putting the questions in. When we finish with the tutorial as such, I'll open the Q&A, and I'm at home like many of you, so I don't have very far to go, so I can stick around as long as you're required to make sure that we answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to close the chat box and go back to the visual prompt. So we got actually perfect timing. We got to the point of the new tactics and so on. So this is part two. We've gone through the essentials. We're now going to move on to new tactics, new ideas, something for you to take away and reflect on, but of course, make it your own as part of your email experience for the next 12 months. So part of what I wanted to explore with you is this idea of, the key elements that you would normally cover through a workshop. We're going to have a condensed version today. Now, typically, we talk to you about your preferred style as a content creator. And I think that's quite important to connect with what that is, and maybe obviously experimentation is going to be part of it. But do you understand your preferred style and also your preferred media? That's going to make obviously the cut as part of email marketing for you as an author, which means that you can then curate and collaborate with others on of maybe styles or media that is not yours. So for example, if you much prefer writing long form article, would you curate maybe a short form, and would you collaborate in the podcast so that you have a real blend of media? We talk about your connection. What I mean by that is who is going to be as part of your database, who are the individuals who are going to make a true difference to your business. Then we talk about the content that's going to be part of your email experience, and we construct obviously the journey from marketing to promise to experience. Today, all I have time to cover with you is construct, which I think is the most important one. And I'm going to give you some, kind of advice about content, but all the other aspects we can cover as part of our Q&A. So when I think about construct, I go back to this, the email marketing, email customer promise, and email customer experience. And thank you for at least thinking that it's plausible at this stage that we can challenge the language for us and come up with the three key elements of a strategy. So you should be able to summarize very simply what you're going to do to make sure that people know that you have this email offer, what you're going to do to make sure that they are kind of convinced and they find it credible as an offer. Bear in mind what people have had to be subjected to in terms of malpractice, and then what you're going to do to make sure that their experience is obviously a very positive and certainly superior to the competition. So I'm going to begin with email marketing. So at the heart of it is the idea of working with others so that your audience, who doesn't know of you yet, who doesn't know of your email service yet, discover this and is intrigued and wants to know more. Marketing your email offering via somebody else. And what you'll have to do there is a bit of research and, of course, use your network, professional network in particular. And what we tend to do there is do an exercise where we use Google a lot and LinkedIn just to kind of find some connections. But this idea of, at this moment in time, your ideal customer is receiving newsletters, e-bulletin, any form of email communication from others. So that's the important part. You need to know who those others are and then make an approach of collaboration. Usually it'll be time and or content that you kind of collaborate on so that you are discovered by your ideal customer. So I've got 4 questions for you, and those 4 questions are meant to be a hint about what you should research and discover for yourself. So you could argue that as part of your email kind of campaign, email marketing, you're going to have 2 databases. A database of companies and individuals where you're going to collaborate for the email marketing, and a database of individuals to become the recipient of your email efforts. So question number 1, your amazing customers, your ideal customers, do they belong to a membership organization or something similar? Do they, are they part of a business club? Are they part of a group around a common interest? Are they part of an association, of an institute. And that could be formal, like a membership type thing or federation, or it could be very informal. But knowing who that organization or grouping might be would be very important to you, because then I can guarantee you that they will want to keep in touch with your ideal customers in their own ways. And yes, they'll have a website. Yes, they'll have a social media platform. I can guarantee at minimum they'll have what they're going to call maybe a monthly newsletter. And every Monday morning, they have that meeting thinking, what are we going to put in that monthly newsletter? And then you come in to contribute, collaborate, offering time and content. So the same principle will work with the second group. And the question is, your ideal customers, do they attend virtual conferences, webinars? Essentially, do they look after their skill set? Do they train themselves and, of course, improve their understanding on the particular subject? And if the answer is yes, can you find out using Google and LinkedIn who the organizations might be, and again offer your time and content and collaborate so that you are featured in their next email communication effort and reach your ideal customers. Next question would be, your ideal customer, do they keep themselves informed via digital and printed media? There could be some specialist magazines and more that they subscribe to, as well as online local news, original news. Knowing who that is and why that is very important to you, because I can guarantee you those organizations and individuals will communicate via email with your ideal customers. And then finally, the next question, final question would be, would they normally go to trade shows and industry events? Right now, they're going to go to a virtual trade show. They're going to go to a virtual industry event. But essentially, are they regular visitors virtually or physically of events that help them essentially connect with the supplier base, new technology, new process, and so on? And we call this the ideal customers trust network. They used to say, right now, your customers will trust organization and individual. They will use them to access information, to keep themselves informed. It is very likely that they have subscribed to their email service, as well as follow them on social media. And for you to kind of piggyback these organization individuals' effort is at the heart of your email marketing. So before I move on to the next bit, which is email customer promise, does that, excuse me, make sense? Does that clarify what we mean by working with others? And by all means, you don't have to necessarily work with all four. 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4 could be your version of what we're talking about. But I think that's really quite important. So feel free to ask questions or ask for clarification in the Q&A or chat box, and either myself or Rory will pick up, what you're putting in. So yeah, again, take a screenshot of this. It's just a prompt, but knowing a handful of each of those individual organizations around your trust network is going to make a massive difference to your marketing, and will avoid this idea of relying solely on your own website, on your own social media, and so on and so forth. So that's great. Let me move on then to the next element, which is your email customer promise. And I'm going to ask you a question, which you can reply within the chat box. But the challenge for all of us and the realization is that in 2020, 2021, we need to accept that most people are not necessarily going to rush to subscribe to more content to be sent to their inbox. You're going to have to make a very good offer. So bear in mind, we've also looked at, literally, 86% of people will happily delete half of the email they get because it's not very interesting. In your own mind, in your own views, what are the reasons that would stop somebody from subscribing to yet another email service? What are the reasons that could come to mind that would make them reluctant, resistant to subscribe to a email service, newsletter, bulletin, whatever it might be? So if you'd like to put your views in the chat box, and I read them out for you. Reasons for someone to not subscribe to, a service, what would it be? So Claire, volume, as in they're getting too many already, so I'm done. Let me do the call first. Irrelevant content from Jessica. So too many. So potentially they take a look at what's on offer and the spammy content. So don't want to do that again. So Marina, so the reason they would do it as opposed to not do it is because they know they're going to receive valuable information. There's lack of clarity from Julie. Yeah. Doesn't answer, Keith, you're right. Doesn't answer what's in it for me. What else have you got? So the different reason why people are going to go, nah, not for me, thank you very much. Okay, so keep your suggestion coming, but when it comes to email customer promise, you've all kind of hinted, we need to really step it up here. I think the large majority, and I'm going to use Julie's last kind of comment, the large majority of offers, and I will say that I would include myself in that, is simply not inspiring. We just don't know what it is. I mean, we can tell that it's the same form as everybody else. We can tell that you've called it a newsletter, a bulletin, a free this, a free that. Um, we just don't know what it is. So we're going to have to work harder on the promise. Not to obviously suggest all that people think you're going to behave not particularly honestly and ethically, but they also have poor memory of recent efforts. So the one where they gave them an address to just download the free ebook, and the ebook was not very good at all, and then they were spammed to death after that. The one where they were going to get a monthly newsletter, and actually was not monthly at all. It was as and when the organization could remember. And then on the other side, I subscribed to a special offer, and they were here from the organization. So there's a lot of memory going on for people and individuals. But ultimately, where I suppose all of us need to improve is this idea of under communication. Keith said, "What's in it for me? What is it?" You called it a newsletter, but newsletters, they kind of go from the good, bad, and the ugly. So we need to work harder on really helping somebody visualize what it is that they're going to get in a very near future. What is it that you're promising? And you can't just give it a simple label like subscribe to our newsletter. Here you have the fields to complete, because I need to visualize, I need to imagine something that is actually a positive experience. So there's some research on that, and it's something that we've been promoting for a while now, but this idea of the customer promise page of the future for email marketing, because that's what we're talking about today, but that could be also true for social media or for the free ebook or the free course and so on. So I was, at the time of doing my research, I was about to try and draw and sketch something on the screen, but I got lucky and I found what I was looking for. So this idea of signing up, this is for me the sign up picture of web page of the future, and I'm not saying obviously the people at Flight School who designed it. So if you take a moment to look at the different elements, and I'm going to go through them one by one. So this being the landing page or the welcome page or the subscribe page of the future, and it's all about this idea of help me visualize and reassure me about what I'm going to get. So you're going to have obviously a headline that will match this idea of, excuse me, subscribe to a newsletter or welcome to a newsletter landing page and so on. But as you can tell, a brand new element that we've not seen often enough, I don't think, is a thank you video. And this thank you video would be very short. I'd imagine it'll be about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, but it's going to thank somebody for their interest in your email newsletter. That's what you're going to go for. It could be something else altogether. But importantly, visually show what they're going to get. You'll be able to visually share and show them what they're going to get. But also within a thank you video, tackle head-on any concerns around data privacy, tackle concern around spamming, around frequency, usefulness, that kind of thing. So I think that there's something really interesting we could do here. And this could be obviously a talking head video. So it could be you presenting your email service, your email experience to your future audience and explaining in your own words what it is. If you don't fancy doing a talking head, there could be screen recordings of the web page and the email newsletter being kind of constructed with some text and some kind of music in the background. Or it could be still photography animated, using some very simple software. But I think that the video, to help somebody truly understand what the promise is going to be a big, big game changer. On top of which, as you can see below the video, to get some customers to thank you and praise you for the email experience. We get people to thank us and praise us for the overall customer experience of dealing with us and buying our services and our products. But actually here, if we want to build a list, bear in mind all the effort you put in in the email marketing, the stage just before, let's really put our best kind of cards on the table here and get some people to give us some feedback on the experience of receiving the email communication. Then you have the form, then you have all the kind of elements you can do that. But I think for me, that was I'm so pleased I didn't have to try and sketch it. It would be nowhere near as good as this. The idea of the video to help people visualize, and then the testimonials to have others to kind of concur with you that your email marketing, or the email experience, should I say, is a positive one. So before I can move on from the promise, because I think that visual kind of says it all, and talk to you about your email experience, what is your reaction to this idea of the page of the future? Is that a yes? Is that a maybe? Or is that a no for you? If I could have a quick reaction in the chat box. Thank you very much. All right, so I'll keep the chat box open as you type away, but Nicola thinks that video is what is expected now. Yeah, Jessica, that's absolutely right. And this is about things to think about in the future. I think at a minimum, if we don't want to do a video just yet, at least show me some examples of the newsletter, or show me some examples of what it is that I'm going to subscribe to. It's a bit like if we run a magazine, you'd be able to look back at some of the old subscriptions. So I would say minimum, that should be something that we look towards. It could be just a static image with some copy. So I'm quickly looking at Claire. I'm doing marketing. Yeah, Claire, I think it's all about this idea of, if you want me to go on the website and do something, and right now we agree that most people would be reluctant to do so. And the number one reason is because I don't really understand. I can't visualize what you have in mind, and find ways to show it to me, that the idea behind it. Yeah, Michael, absolutely right. So this is obviously an example that I'm giving to you squarely around email marketing, but you're absolutely right. This same kind of principle will work for anything where there's benefits to be communicated and an action to be taken as a result. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Catherine. So let's move on to, oh yeah, sorry, before we move on to customer experience, something that I've tried with some customers. So you've gone ahead, or you go ahead with creating your newsletter, your bulletin, and so on. As well as obviously make sure people understand what it's like to, at the registration stage. Whenever it's been published and shared, you can also create some nice teaser content using a video to show and tell the newsletter. So what you could do, which is what I've done with some customers as a test, is you would send yourself your own newsletter, which I know sounds odd, but actually be part of testing. And what you can do is record a video of yourself kind of reading, consulting your newsletter on a mobile phone, and then share this little video file on social media. Two things to remind people to watch out for, the alert on their inbox that the newsletter has been published. But also what you could do is make people aware within your social network and beyond. Oh, I'd forgotten that Claire or Michael had a newsletter, or I should really subscribe. I've been putting it off and so on. So I've got a very simple example to show you next. It's not my newsletter, as you'll see in a moment. It's from a gentleman called Gary Vaynerchuk, but I received the newsletter, so I recorded myself. So this is me on my mobile phone, and I'm recording the screen as I'm scrolling up. And what you could do is have a running commentary. You could obviously record your voice to talk about the different sections, event of the week, in the news. So that's someone doing the messenger bit, by the way, Warren. So that's how it works. And then you got the sign off. So I've not timed it, but that's probably a newsletter that is roughly 10, 15 seconds. The app that I've used is called AZ Screen Recorder. I believe it's available for both the Android system and the kind of iPhones. If not, you've got to find something very similar. And AZ Screen Recorder, as the name would indicate, records your screen. And this is how I did this. And you can do some editing as well, and make it look all nice. So yeah, on the subject of video, I wanted to share that with you as well. Now, moving on to customer experience, so that true email experience, because if you craft that, then you know what the promise is, and then you know where you're supposed to be marketing, working with others. So this is something that I've been wrestling with for many, many years, both as an employee working in marketing, then as a kind of consultant, and now my own business. What is it that we need to craft here, and what is the construct of this experience? And I think that it's all to do with splitting the different types of email services so that you clearly understand how different they are, and then almost mix it up, for your customers. So I came up with this very, very simple kind of model, and using alliteration. So the 4 S's of email experience. So the first one that comes to mind is what I call the singles. So the singles would be pretty much what you see and in your inbox, and you see people do every day, which is the idea of the regular kind of email that hits your inbox singly, but ultimately you can miss one and catch up with the others. They don't kind of tie in together. So you can miss the weekly news roundup, or you can miss the monthly newsletter. It's okay, because next month, it will come to you. So they're kind of singles, and they hit, the inbox of our customers and ours, and they are very important. They work really well. Now, back to some of the comments you guys have shared in the chat box, and also my kind of premise to you, which is the danger is that if all we do are the singles, if all we do is what is expected, then how do we go from some things that only some do, and then how do we go to where no one is doing it just yet? So we need to be looking at other form of email customer experience. And the next one that came to mind really is what I called the series. Now, the series, you've seen them less often, but they do exist, where people are going to subscribe to a short series of email. They're often used for a very short course, or for a very short kind of introduction to a company, or for a short product description, whatever. So they could say, this is email 1 of 5, and then the next email would be tomorrow or next week, and so on. But they are kind of tight, and there's only a small number, and after that the series will stop, and then people may want to select to subscribe to the follow-up series, but usually there's a break in between. So the series would be a number of emails that relate to each other, that build on each other, so that a message is shared, very comprehensively. And like I said, often the example that you've seen online would be the sharing of knowledge through maybe an online course, or the sharing of company information, where people essentially is phased because perhaps it's quite a lot of information to go in one go. But again, so what people could do is they subscribe to the singles, they get a monthly newsletter, and within that we surprise them with an offer to subscribe to a series that's going to run obviously in parallel. So I would think whether that could be an experience for you to offer to surprise them. The other thing you can do, and that depends entirely on your business, is to go for not the series, but also go for the seasons. Now, the seasons means that these are regular emails that explore a subject, but there's no break in between. So where there's a series, there would be always a break of a month or two before you surprise them again with the next series. With a season, you kind of explore a subject matter for, let's say, the whole month of September, and then you roll the next one in October, and you roll the next one in December. So this kind of rolling effect, but there's no break in between. And the difference, sometimes you'll ask me about between the singles and the season. The singles, usually, the content is more this idea of gathering what's been happening in the business and in marketing as almost like a compendium, whereas the season tend to be really tightly around a central theme that is explored thoroughly. You could argue that the season almost resembles more like running a magazine than anything else out there. And the final way which you could provide a different experience is what I call the specials, which are this one-off announcement about a topic, a subject matter, an offer, could be a discount, and so on and so forth, but something that you could argue the customer could not have predicted, and it's a pleasant surprise. And I see people do that a lot, particularly with the membership type organizations, where they want to keep the audience engaged, and they worry that the singles, because of its repetitive nature, people start to become a little blasé, or they just become very familiar. They want to surprise them, so out of nowhere, without any kind of announcement, they share a warm message. And usually the specials are very, very tight. They tend to have just a single message. But this is what I kind of came up with back a few years ago when there was the demand again to learn about email marketing. This idea of try and see if you can vary and surprise people. By all means, the singles, of course, you're going to do that, but can you explore other versions of singles, series, seasons, and specials, the 4 S's, to find your own way to make sure that then when I go to the landing page of the future, I get excited. I get excited this idea of this is going to be so much more different. It's going to feel more relevant. They're going to feel like they are thinking it through and taking good care of me. I mean, examples, again, my inbox is just full of digital stuff, marketing stuff, and it's not very varied, but this is obviously the Moz Top 10, which I've subscribed to, and I read. Oh goodness, it's been years and years. I look forward to it, but it's a single. So frankly, if I'm busy in September, I'll probably just wait for the October one. You know, it'll be fine. There isn't this commitment, if you like, to the same thing. So singles, you see them every day. You know, this is an example of a weekly single as opposed to a monthly one. And again, it's typically, like the name will indicate, the digest. It's usually what tends to be there. The roundup is part of the singles. You know, sometimes it's called a newsletter, the Facebook for Developer newsletter. Social media today is you know, something that I get at the weekend, but again, you know, it just comes back on a regular basis, and a wonderful way for me to keep in touch. But then I get specials like this one from TomTom, so you know, they want me to kind of change things. So that's surprised me. I didn't expect it. You know, that's another you know, a special. So this where I'm invited to a webinar, that kind of thing. So the idea is there. So with the specials and surprising people, I think sometime they also are called the lead magnet. The difference here, and I thank Chris Ducker for the hard work he's put into helping me summarize, obviously, what was in my head, is this idea of surprising with a guide, maybe surprising with a checklist, surprising with the webinars we've done, surprising with a free course, surprising with a free consultation, a free trial, or a free demo. What is important is that the specials, they work. They have a dual role to help you, obviously, capture more subscribers to build your list, but they also have this role of surprising the existing database and making sure that they don't start to wonder whether or not somebody else out there is doing a better job. So before I move on to a bit more advice, I want to check with you your reaction to the 4 ways in which you can surprise and create a positive experience. You know, we talk about singles, we talk about series, we talk about specials and seasons. Is that helpful to you? Does that clarify a few things that perhaps you've seen people do online as well? So feel free to leave your comments on the chat box and any questions. And then I move on to give you some additional advice about the tactics of 2020-2021. At this moment in time, which you know, approach do you have? So do you use the singles primarily? Have you tried the series? Have you tried the seasons? And have you tried the specials? You know, have you seen some reaction? Have you not done anything yet? And does that help, you know, move forward? Leave your comments in the chat box with me. That'd be lovely. So in terms of the what we're going to do forward is you're going to say, well, hang on, Pascal, how do I, you know, even make sense of it myself? So if I go ahead and do the singles, then I'm going to do the series, maybe I'm going to do some specials and so on. It's going to get very confusing for me. How do I, you know, make sense of it? And what I was saying is make sure that you name each of those kind of email service, you know, email experience very, very differently. You know, so that's kind of in the name. I can see people replying, you know, so Lucy using primarily singles, but does like the idea of the series. So Julie was saying, all good ideas, but still need that title line to get people to open it and experience what's inside. True, but you can't do that unless you've come up with the, you know, the actual series themselves. So have a think, and they'll come to you. So Ellie's done some variations on each, but looking at, you know, what's been interesting. Michael, is there a reason to not use all 4? None whatsoever. You know, I'm saying just use all 4 if you want to. I think minimum you should at least, you know, use 2, but all 4 would be even better. So in answer to your question, I think to a point, Julie, is if people are not opening it, and you have to start to work extensively on the subject line, then there's a slight disconnect between you and the audience, which you need to look at. But in general, people should look forward to, because the singles are named very differently to the series, which are named differently to the seasons and to the specials. It's sometimes been called, the Netflix models, this idea of, everything is under the same umbrella of Netflix, but what you do is very, very different. So part of the fun and part of the pleasure of doing that email experience is to come up with different names and try it out and so on. So your singles will have a different name to the series and so on. And as a case in point, I came across some great examples of naming of different series or different content on Canva, which I'm sure will be known to you. So I'm just going to go through the visual because it's there as a prompt, really, more than anything else. This idea of, can you come up with a great name for your singles, and a different name for your series, and a different name for your seasons and for your specials? Bear in mind that it all comes from you. That's the umbrella brand and term. And I think that's going to be very, very helpful. So when we've done that with customers, they found it to be really quite liberating to, right, we have a name, something we can get excited, we can start to acquire some visuals and so on. And then it becomes a thing that people can really look forward to and expect from you. So again, they're there just as an example to kind of illustrate the point that I'm making to you. So we've spoken about the essentials. We've spoken about the next stage of evolution of our thinking. Bear in mind, we have an audience who is, at the moment, feels maybe a little disappointed by, the content they get in their inbox, and we want to step away from that and be part of, if we look at the 2018 data from Statista, we want to be part of that 14% of emails that are retained and remain and so on. So we'll be looking at this. I will move on to talking to you about content, and then once I've done so, we'll kind of close the kind of official proceedings and recording, then move on to all your questions as part of our Q&A. So as part of what I want to do is kind of add to your toolkit. You will already have a lot going on, and it's not about using, the more tools you use, the easier it's going to get, but sometimes we just need to recap on a few things. So to begin with, since we are talking about email experience, we need to have a technical partner that's going to help us do that. There are so many options out there, and these are the options that either I've tried myself, or I've been in receipt of, or that some of my associates have spoken about, but please understand there are more than just the options I'm going to give you. So in no particular order, in the order which I remembered, you could maybe try MailerLite if, again, you don't have a chosen platform. They all pretty much do the same thing. It's more about, how much you enjoy the interface, and maybe where they have some little unique features that may be better for you. ConvertKit is also a very strong one that usually is very popular amongst marketers. MailChimp, I suspect, will need little introduction, but again, there's more than just MailChimp out there that can help you devise your email experience. Aweber is another company worth your consideration if you want to. If you want to try something a little easier or lighter, TinyLetter, which is actually a subset of MailChimp, could be a nice way to begin. It's almost like going back to the original newsletter where there's little to no design. It's just about crafting very good content and making people enjoy, your contribution. And HubSpot, I think that the name has disappeared from view, but HubSpot also offer a platform that can allow you to explore what we mean by being in charge of email marketing, the customer promise, and the customer experience. So have a think about those platforms and how they work for you. Excuse me. And then in addition to what you do, you need support for the crafting of the content, which is, by the way, also true for blogging as well as social media and so on. So again, this is almost like your starter pack, if you will, that we tend to recommend as part of this program. So to begin with, we all need inspiration to come up with content. So we talk about being a mentor a moment ago. And sometimes it's just hard, particularly where we have maybe at this moment in time less interaction, less networking, less conversation perhaps with our customers to come up with it. So there is a fun website called Answer the Public. I don't know if you know it already. What you can do is put a keyword or two, and then what it's going to do after a bit of data crunching will give you a mind map of the questions people have asked on Google against that keyword or two. And usually, as you can see, it's organized between how, where, when, and which. And you don't have to necessarily use this, the question given to you exactly word for word, but it's a nice reminder, it's just a nice nudge for you to come up with things to research, curate, or collaborate on. If you're not a big fan of mind maps, could be not your thing, and you prefer maybe a list format, there's something similar called keywordtool.io. Again, both of those have a free and chargeable service, but the free one is sufficient to get a little inspiration of, yeah, of course, that question, this is the one that I'm always asked, or actually, that's a new question for me. It's going to supplement my ideas for the email experience. So that's the idea behind it. Then we need a bit of support. So on occasion for visuals, we need to kind of curate things. So on the left-hand side, you've got things like Pixabay, Pexels, Unsplash. I'll ask you in a moment what you favor, but they give you access to copyright-free photography, visuals, that you can then change and make part of the email content and experience. And then on the flip side, you may need to edit, and you will actually edit, so that it fits the style of the email template. Then you can use things like Canva, you can use things like Pablo by Buffer, just below Canva. But you just need something simple that can really make life as easy as possible. If you're not familiar with Canva, have a go. I mean, make sure you have plenty of time, because you're going to have immense fun, and they keep improving the platform over and over again. So canva.com is going to be a great virtual assistant for you moving forward. But again, if you favor something a bit simpler, then pablo.buffer.com does a similar job of creating graphics with text, but has a simpler interface which you will enjoy, but usually you'll find what you want there. We spoke a moment ago about doing videos. I'm a big fan of this free mobile phone app called Quick, spelled without a C, because that's what you have to do when you do an app. You mustn't spell things properly. So Quick by GoPro, jesting apart, is an incredibly powerful video editing app. You can edit still photography, you can edit video clips, you can add text and copyright-free music, which can be what you use for that thank you video we spoke about as part of your email customer promise. Have a go. I like it a lot. If you like to animate text only, there's an app called Legend, which can be part actually and parcel of how you might promote your email marketing. Again, it's a nice little one that you want to add to your toolkit. We talked about Messenger. I think it was Warren kindly asked me to clarify this idea of always becoming the go-to, the favorite go-to platform for news updates and so on. So you need to be able to curate that news. You need to be able to access the news. And there are a few platforms that can make life a little easier. So this one, localmediauk.org, if it's part of your marketing activities, you could be actually curating local news, including business news, of course, and that will give you a database of the local news medium, primarily in print, and particularly if you want to target customers who are not in a region that you're familiar with, that can be very helpful. If you want to think more national, but also look at things like TV, magazines, radio, media.info. I checked again, it was still working last week. Will give you details of the programs, the titles of magazines, and on occasion the key contacts you can approach as well, so that you can also look beyond curation at collaboration as well with them, which is a lovely thing to do. The other thing that I was thinking of is if you wanted to be a little different and not be quoting or curating always the news from the same sources as everybody else, there's a website called newsnow.co.uk, and this is almost like a search engine for news, and will allow you to kind of come up with sometimes news websites and platforms that are not as known and will make you stand out and be more different. On the subject of curation, think about having a bit of an assistant to maybe find what's working well on the web, particularly on social media. Now, contentgems.com is a search engine for content that is performing well on social media. You open a free account, you set up a profile using keywords, and then it will give you a summary of articles, infographics, videos, and more to consider that you could then share as part of your efforts to be useful. That's a nice one to use. Plenty of other options, but this one I like. You can, of course, take the initiative and go to platforms like SlideShare. So if you are operating more in a B2B environment, there will be a plethora of presentations from speakers and trainers on SlideShare, and think of it as almost embedding that and sharing it as you would a YouTube video. So if you don't know SlideShare, again, that could be an interesting one to be different and one that perhaps somebody else is doing at the moment. I mentioned YouTube, so by all means, that can be a great platform to curate and find future collaborators. But some of you will be aware, if not all of you will be aware, that there's now been a massive increase in uptake in podcast listening and by extension, podcast show creation. So I would definitely look to start to curate and collaborate with podcasters and audio marketing practitioners. This is a screen grab of SoundCloud, but of course, all platforms will work as well. And we'll move on to other things. So this is other things that came to mind as part of your toolkit. So sometimes we just don't have the visual, we don't have the photography and so on. We need something else. And maybe sometime what we need is an animation or a 3D, 2D cartoon. So there's a platform called Byteable that will allow you to, essentially edit and download some scenes, some kind of scenes that could actually be what you use thinking out loud about the thank you video. They have a very small monthly charge, but it's really worth it because they take really a lot of the work out of it. Byteable is only one of many that does this type of service, but it can be very, very helpful. And we spoke a moment ago about email marketing, and it would be really remiss of me not to encourage you to consider adopting, being more active on video through collaboration, as you can see on screen. And the platforms that allow you to do so, there's new ones all the time. But from recording a Skype call to recording a Zoom call to many other platforms. And if you're interested in that type of activity, we recorded a webinars on webinars it's, a few months ago. And you can find it in the YouTube channel, as we spoke through. So I just want to kind of give you some appreciation that you can support your content effort, really easily nowadays. You could also repurpose live sessions. So if any of you are live on social as part of your kind of marketing, make sure that this is repurposed and mix it as an alert, as a headline content as part of email marketing. That's really important. I'm going to close finally on this idea of live becoming almost the precursor to the email marketing experience. That's, I think, where things have been going. So platform worthy of your consideration. Just as I complete my little toolkit review for you, we've got BeLive.tv, which allows you to actually use your laptop as opposed to mobile phones for better interface and better management of the recording. There's also things like Ecamm Live, which allows you to do the same, particularly if you are a Mac user. That's been very, very helpful, so do consider that. And just to close on the toolkit, I mean, the options are so many. But Anchor.fm is worthy of your consideration if you want to kind of try out podcasting and see how that works for you with regard to creating content that then gets shared and promoted via email marketing. So that's obviously a quick roundup, and I'm looking at time, and Rob would be so pleased to know that on this occasion I'm also sticking to the agreed time schedule. So we're going to move on to your questions, but the final recommendation as part of taking things forward for you is to really not attempt to do all this on your own. And I came up with this kind of grand statement, or you need a content tribe, but all of you today and many others, you are all trying to find a way for your email effort to be more successful and by extension to be more enjoyable. You have been given a blueprint today. We talked about the essentials of being obviously useful, being timely, and being visible. Then we talked about the 3 stages of email marketing: email customer promise and email customer experience, and we'll give you some details. All that is there to give you a common language so that beyond today's webinar you can continue and support each other. And that to me is at the heart of it. So there should be almost, if you like, an email marketing club of sort, happening in your area where you support each other and pick, what's working, not working, and improving all the time. We've said it before, I said it again, this is far too important to try and work it out on your own. So gives me great pleasure now to kind of close on the kind of official proceeding and delivery of this webinar. We're going to kind of say goodbye now just for the purpose of the video recording, but then we're going to stay online with Rory and take all your questions. So let me begin by thanking the team at UMI, who are delivering the Digital Knowledge Exchange and Digital Drive Durham programs for you, and also thank them for organizing this great session on email marketing strategy and what we can do to get it back on track so that we can get more success in 2020 and 2021. I was Pascal Fintoni, my colleague was Rory Book, and we thank you very much for your support today.